Okay, I will officially call the meeting to order of the Fishers Advisory Committee on Disability, Tuesday, April 9th. And if we could have a roll call, please, Kay?
Yes. Cecilia.
Here?
Kelly.
I'm here.
Wilbur.
Here.
Katie will be here shortly. Darcy.
Here.
Chrissy.
Here.
Michelle.
Here.
Shelby.
Here.
And Ross.
Here.
Awesome. Okay, and then we will have Katie introduce herself here when she gets here, our new advisory committee member. We need a motion to approve the previous minutes, December 12th meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Motion by Wilbur, second by?
I'll second.
Second by Kelly. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We're moving on to our guest speakers. We have two guest speakers today. We're going to start with Audrey Douglas. She's the community health advocate for the Fishers Health Department. She's going to share about a new fall prevention grant program that we have just launched out through the Fishers Health Department. And so welcome. Thank you. We're excited to have you here.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah, so Cecilia said my name's Audrey Douglas, and I was hired on back in October to be a community health advocate for the Fishers Health Department because of the number of falls we're seeing specifically in this community. So our program is called We Care, We Connect. And here is our team. This is our social work community health advocate team. Brittany Chevron Smith was hired on about a year ago at this time. She's our social worker, and she addresses the mental health crises in the community, and she really sees a really wide variety of things that happen, but she covers a lot. Myself, Chadden, and Daniel were hired on to be the community health advocates, and we were hired on specifically to address the number of falls in the community, but we also work at the Fishers Health Department clinic. So as I said, our program's called We Care, We Connect, and our goal is to help those in the Fishers community age safely in their own homes. We don't want to go into the homes thinking that we're going to take people out of it. It's our goal to help these people stay in their own homes as long as it's safe. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background here for what the falls look like for the 2023 year. So for 2023, there were 5,860 EMS calls, 989 of them being specifically just for falls. So that's roughly about 20% of calls were fall related. And there were 1,721 injuries at the at the fire departments, and 989 of them were just for falls. So a very large amount of the calls we're seeing are for falls. And if you look down at the bottom, the older you get, the more likely you are to have a fall. From the age group of 51 to 75, there were 269 falls. And then 75 and older, there are 563 falls. So you might ask, why is this so important that we brought in a whole entire program to address this need? Well, the National Council on Aging talks a little bit about it here. So more than 1 out of 4 Americans age 65 and older fall each year. Falls are the leading cause of fatal and non-fatal injuries among older adults. The cost of treating injuries caused by falls is projected to be over $101 billion by 2030. And also, falls result in more than 3 million injuries treated in emergency departments each year, which is a big indicator of why I was hired on there. So I'll tell you a little bit more about how our program works. We paired on with the fire department and the health department, and we worked really hard to get this grant. So how it works is every single morning I get an email of a list of people who have had a fall. It's usually from the day before, but the fire department sends that over to me and my 2 other community health advocates, And I first and foremost look up the information of the fall, kind of see what I can gather from it. We can only help right now those who are in their own homes. We can't help in assisted living facilities just because that's not their property that we can go in and start modifying. But I call the individual as long as they're in their own home, and I check in and see how they're doing, if they went to rehab, if they ended up in a nursing facility, just kind of get their background about why they might have had a fall also. But as I said, I really like to check in and see how they're doing. Next, I ask them if they'd be willing to participate in our fall prevention program. It's totally voluntary, they don't have to do it, but we want them to know that it's an extra service that they have being a Fishers resident. So if they're willing to, we schedule a time that we can complete a fall assessment with them, which is myself or one of the 2 other community health advocates going into their own homes and asking them questions, and I'll show you a couple different slides about what we ask them here in a minute, but we provide referrals and home modifications on the spot that day to make their home safer than it was before we got there. So after our initial home visit, I wait about a month and a half, and then I follow up, call, check in, see how they're doing, and also see if we could come back and do a post-assessment with them, which just is our way of checking back in, seeing how they're doing, and also seeing if they connected to any of the resources that we provided for them, or say we gave them a resource for grab bars. Did they contact this person so they could come in and put the grab bars in? So we just like to kind of hold them accountable a little bit, but also see how they're doing. So next, this is our client assessment. I don't know how well you guys can see this, but this is the first paperwork that we go through during the home visit. We look at past diagnoses such as strokes, Alzheimer's, anything of that sort, just to know if that could be an indication of why they may be falling. We look at mobility concerns to address if they have a walker, wheelchair, any durable medical equipment, and if they don't, we can connect them to somewhere that has that for them. We look at their fall history, have they had a fall in the past 90 days. We also look at any visual or auditory impairment, and then we ask them about medications they're taking. We specifically don't have a health background, but we refer them to their primary care just because the number of medications you're on, the higher risk that there will be some interaction between the medications that might cause them to fall. And we also ask them if they're having any incontinence and rushing to the bathroom in the middle of the night, so because that could also cause a fall. Next is the home assessment. We ask the patient if they're able to lead us through their house, just so we can check out things. We're looking for if their throw rugs are taped down. We're looking for if they have grab bars. We're looking for if they have adequate lighting throughout the house, just things like that. And sometimes people just don't notice. So that's really what we're going to have a different pair of eyes to look through the house and see if we can help them in any way. We also look outside to see if that might be an area of concern. Lastly, what we do with them is we do a basic needs assessment, which just will help us understand if there's any underlying needs that we might not see right away. We ask them about transportation, we ask them about if they're able to pay for their bills, or we ask them about isolation and if they're feeling lonely, just so we can refer them out to other organizations. We use Shepherd Center a lot and Good Samaritan Network just to connect them with different organizations that may be able to bring them things such as a friendly visitor through Good Samaritan Network or anything of that sort. So lastly, what I'll talk about is we were really going for a reactive approach. We were waiting until people had a fall, and then that would come through to me and I would call them and ask them how they were. But now we're wanting to do a more proactive approach. So we have started allowing people to do self-referrals and allowing them to call in or email us if they'd like us to come out instead of waiting for them to have a fall. So we're really excited that we've been getting some referrals lately for people who would like to lighten the load from the EMS runs. and I can give you all, I'll bring by information on it, but here is the phone number and our email for the ones who want to reach out to us. So if you email or call us, the call will go to myself or one of the 2 other community health advocates, and we'll get back to you as quick as we can. So I think that's all I have for you. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
That's really informative. So are there any questions like Kelly does? So, go ahead.
Yeah.
I happen to be in the public safety part of my point of view day conversation, and we talked a lot about the falls stuff. And one of the ideas that came out of that was perhaps adding some like strengthening or exercise programs for people who need to build strength as a prevention. Is there any hope of that being included in your prevention program?
So we actually were really excited. We just are partnering with Purdue Extension, and we're starting a program called Matter of Balance, and it should start in October or September here, but we're going to rent out the trustee's office and have that building. It's going to be an 8-week program. It's a physical therapist who walks you through everything, and you can sit down and do the class, or you can stand up and do the class. It's what you're comfortable with, but we're really excited to get something like that in the community, because the closest thing we have would be like the Y, or I know Prime Life in Richmond and Carmel, but there really isn't much in this area.
Great. Darcy has questions.
My neighbor last week fell, and she's 80-some years old, and then like at 2 o'clock in the morning, ambulance, everything at her house.
Yeah.
She speaks Spanish, and she speaks pretty good English, but she's sometimes hard to understand. Is there someone that would be able to speak Spanish with her, or do you guys have that? I'm not sure if she would even be open to having somebody come into her home, but she's a single lady. She has kids around, but...
Sure. Yeah, we actually have a translating system at the health department. It's called Proprio. So we can take our phone with us and translate the whole entire time.
Yeah, she speaks English well, but she's got the accent that it's hard to understand.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Is this information then on the Fishers website then? Is there a
We're
way
working
to-
on right now getting out all of our information. We started taking, let me show you this information. We have a whole brochure. That's what I'll bring by here. But we started taking it out to all of the fire departments around, doctors' offices, physical therapy, really anywhere that we think would be beneficial for it. But we are trying to create a website, I know, for it right now.
Because I was wondering if we could link it somehow to our group or something, or
Yeah.
something we could do that it's, you know, we provide it maybe, Ross, on the advisory committee accessibility website, and then, you know, goes to your page or something like that, so people know.
Yeah, I know we are trying to work on more of an online version of it. I know we have an online version of the pamphlet that we give out, but the website's not quite there yet. But
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions about the fall prevention program? Anybody has any other questions?
I guess
Wilbur?
one question I have, you mentioned rails and guides and things like that.
Yeah.
Are those provided at no charge to the individual, or do they pay for the handrails?
Yeah, so we did get a large grant. We got $30,000, but it's been approved, but we will not have access to it until about May. So we're waiting for that to come through, but I haven't ran into the issue of people not really being able to afford something quite yet. And when we send them out a referral, they've been able to pay for the grab bars themselves. But we're really excited to get this money so we can help those who wouldn't be able to get that for themselves. But things such as like night lights we take with us, non-slip rugs we take with us, non-slip socks, anything like that. We have car rails we can provide for them for free. So we do offer minor home modifications, but once it gets bigger than grab rails, ramps, anything like that, we have to resource them out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was wondering if during like the farmer's market or, I know we're working on an inclusion day at the farmer's market to have more information about disability, inclusion and things.
Sure.
Would you be willing to, help us maybe with some information on that day? It's gonna be in July. I don't know if you were planning on being at the farmer's market on a regular basis, or somebody to
Sure.
have information about the program.
Yeah, we can definitely, I can drop off, we ordered a bunch of brochure holders and we can put information together for you guys if that would be helpful. But I know all of our staff should be at least one of the farmers markets. So you can always send them in our direction and we can give you more information too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think we were gonna try to have representatives from our committee at the farmer's market to be there to ask questions, to get people to know, like, that we exist, we're here to help, provide, ask questions, answer questions,
Sure.
provide resources, so
Yeah,
that'd be great.
definitely.
Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you,
I appreciate
guys.
it. And if you wanna just drop off some brochures to Ross, I can pick them up
Okay,
over at
Sure.
City Services office or something like that, so, or
Okay.
I can come by your office and get them later this week.
sounds good. And I'll leave some of my business cards up here, but I will bring by those brochures too.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next speaker is Jessica Miner. She is the Director of Community Engagement with Accessibility, and she's also a Fishers resident. Super excited to connect with her recently, and she wanted to share more about what her organization does and how they can be a resource to our community. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Alrighty. Okay. Yes, so as Cecilia mentioned, I am with Accessibility, which is a center for independent living. Sorry. Here we go. So Jessica Mina, she, her pronouns, Director of Community Engagement. So really I am doing all of the outward facing presentations, trainings, things like that. So excited to be here. And I've been with Accessibility for almost 3.5 years now. So what do we do? Our mission is to empower our Central Indiana peers with disabilities on their journey to independence. So we know that independence looks very different for every individual, disability or not, and so we work one-on-one with each individual to kind of identify what their needs are, what they're looking for, what independence looks like to them. We do not tell them what we think independence looks like to them. They tell us, and then we kind of work to achieve those goals, walking alongside them. As a Center for Independent Living, there are 5 core services that we provide. There are centers for independent living all throughout the state and also all throughout the country. So we are really mandated by the government to exist to provide these services. And so anywhere you go, you're going to see some iteration of these 5 core services, which is really the root of what we do. So information and referral is the kind of first starting point you're going to be connected with. So it's just giving individuals information. Someone might call us and say, I just need information on the food pantry that's open today. And we're going to give you that information, and that's all you needed. And you're going to go on your way, and that's all you wanted. Others might have more barriers to independence that they're looking to achieve. And so from our information and referral, we are then going to have you become a consumer and work with one of our advocates longer term. We operate on a peer support model, which is very different from a lot of other organizations you might be seeing, in that over 70% of our staff and our board are also people with disabilities. So that creates a very unique mentorship, partnership type model, because a lot of times our staff have experienced the weird things that come with disability too. And so, even if the advocate on our staff hasn't experienced it, chances are someone else has. And so we really kind of make that deeper connection because we get it. We get disability in a broader way. we provide independent living skills training. And again, this can look like very different depending on the person, but really it's skills to help you be independent in your home or where you're living. So it could be some basic food, cooking skills, basic finances, things like that. We also do individual and systems advocacy. So on an individual level, helping people learn how to be empowered, because you aren't taught advocacy skills generally at birth, but if you have a disability, you need those advocacy skills and you need to feel empowered. So we work on how to kind of be your own advocate, and then on a systems level, we're working on a state level, on a federal level, to ensure that policies and practices are helpful for people with disabilities and not harmful. And then transition. So we do youth, adult, and elder transition. So youth going from high school to whatever that next step is. And then adult and elder is ensuring that those individuals are not being institutionalized, that they're able to remain in their homes, able to be independent, or if they are in an assisted living or institutionalized setting, getting them back into their home if that's where they want to be. So those are the 5 core services that we offer. However, I've said we look to you to tell us what independence means. That's really hard because we can't give you a menu of everything that we provide. So I've tried as best as possible to kind of outline some of the things that people might be asking us for that we're helping with. They often kind of fall into these 4 categories of employment, housing, life planning, and advocacy. But I just want to pull out a few to bring to your attention. So home modifications, I know Audrey talked about home modifications. We also do home modifications, mostly on a basic level. So those ramps, those grab bars, even handrails going into your home if you have steps. Sometimes that's the difference between being able to stay in your home and having to move or be in an assisted living center. We also can help with all of those like government SSI forms that are so complicated. I don't even get it, and I've been in the disability field for quite a long time. So we can help kind of individuals understand those forms, applying for benefits, and then also once they're on it, maximizing their income if they do want to work, because there's such a fear that the government's going to take away their benefits if they work at all. And so we really work to help people understand exactly what they can do, and understanding the reasonable accommodations that come with it. And then lastly, I will mention assistive technology. So we provide assistive technology to any person that needs it. And that is so broad. It can be an Alexa, it can be this thing that like tells you what color your clothes are. But we have someone on our staff that is highly trained in assistive technology. And with all of these things, we come into your home because you're independent in your home. You're not independent at an office building. And so we work with you to help you understand the assistive technology, how it works. And then if you need help, something breaks or stops working, we're going to come back. We're not going to just leave you with a tech device and then you have to figure it out on your own. So we're always there to kind of help you along your journey. Sometimes you maybe need a lot of support, and other times maybe it's just a quick check-in, a quick phone call. So these are just kind of some of the examples of things that we can provide. So beyond independent living skills like I just talked about, we also do a lot of supports to help individuals with feeling so isolated. So a lot of these things that we have a lot of support groups have really come out of COVID, because COVID was a time where everyone was isolated and people with disabilities were even more isolated. So we have Spanish accessible fitness classes, we have a disability and LGBTQ plus support group, a families of visually impaired individuals support group, a neurodiverse peer support group. All of those are open to anyone in the world. They're all virtual, they're monthly, except for the Spanish class is weekly. We also have a bilingual advocate, so any of our Spanish-speaking consumers can call us, and they're going to be put with our lovely bilingual advocate who's going to work with them one-on-one. But then we also offer services for anyone who speaks any language. We work a lot with an immigrant welcome center and Luna to provide those services. And then we also have domestic and sexual violence survivor supports, because we know that people with disabilities are at even higher risk of domestic and sexual violence than the general population. So we serve any age, any disability, at any point in life at no cost. So we don't go through Medicaid, we don't go through your insurance. All you have to do when you call us and looking for services is say, I have a disability, and we are going to help you, empower you. We don't even need to know what kind of disability or have a diagnosis. Really, it's operating on the social model of a disability and taking down that barrier of needing a medical diagnosis, because sometimes that is the barrier for individuals receiving services. So this is kind of the way in which you would come in contact with us. So you're going to call us or email us, Facebook us, whatever way is most comfortable for you. You're going to talk with our information and referral specialist probably first to identify some of your barriers, and then be connected with an advocate. You're going to go through resources, you're going to find additional supports, you're going to remove barriers, and then you're always going to be reevaluating. Just because you started off with some barriers that you wanted to achieve doesn't mean that after you've achieved those, we're done. We're always constantly going to work with you. As long as you have something you need help with, we're going to be there. And if you close out with us, you're done, and you come back in 6 months or a year, that's totally fine too. So that's kind of the process in which you'll be connected with accessibility. And then our service area is Marion and the surrounding donut counties, including Hamilton. So I mentioned there are, I think, 10 centers for independent living throughout the state, but we serve the central Indiana area. And then I always like to mention our fee-for-service. So we also provide kind of disability justice and allyship training. This has been something we've been working on for the past year and a half that's really taken off. But we do disability education, so how to be a better ally, how to be more inclusive within the community, within the disability community, and what can you do as an individual and also within your organization to be more inclusive of the disability community. We also we'll talk through reasonable accommodations with employers. We do accessibility audits of your physical spaces, your websites, things like that, and so much more. So we're constantly kind of developing our offerings, and so always open to hearing kind of what other needs organizations have, because disability is something that I think people are becoming more interested in, and so we want to be able to provide our knowledge and expertise on all of that. So this is how you can contact us: phone number, our email, and that is our, I don't know how to, that is our website.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. This is great. I did have a couple questions with the home modifications. Is that free of charge, or do you work with different providers of home modifications?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and it really depends. So generally our baseline is going to say free of charge. However, if something is over a certain threshold of money, which I can't recall, it goes to our home modification committee to kind of ensure we're being equitable, because, you know, lots of people need home modifications, but we want to make sure that our money is going towards those who really cannot afford it. So it does go through a committee if it's, so much. Sometimes if people say, I can afford half of it, then they pay for half and we'll pay for the other half. If it is something that is way beyond our scope, maybe a complete remodel of a bathroom or things like that, then we will send them over to one of our other partners. So it really depends on kind of what you're looking for. But that isn't to say we haven't done some bathroom remodels or widening of doorways. It just is really variable on kind of the situation.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges that I get calls on or questions on is equipment, like wheelchairs and equipment, or vans, ramps for vans, things like, what about that? Do you work with?
Yeah, so we don't do that. We can certainly help walk through that process with you and be kind of an advocate by your side as you're thinking those things through. So that's kind of really where we come in as kind of peer support for stuff like durable medical equipment. We do have someone on staff who used to work at New Motion, which is a wheelchair company, so she has all of the knowledge when it comes to durable medical equipment, which I've recently found myself needing as well. So that's where we are with that. Unfortunately, vans are really expensive and really silly, and there's not a lot of resources out there for them, and that, I think, then comes to the topic of like the systemic barriers that people with disabilities face, right? It's not just people in Indiana, it's people everywhere are facing these systemic barriers of being able to get their own transportation because vans are unnecessarily expensive. How can anyone afford them? So I think that's the larger problem, but we can work with individuals on kind of walking through those steps.
Sure. Well, thanks. Are there any questions from the committee for Jessica? Okay, well, thank you very much.
you.
And we included this resource on the Fishers website.
Great, okay,
so
perfect.
We're good to go, so that'll
Yeah.
be great. So thank you so much.
Thank
We-
you, and you said
we
it was okay if
appreciate
I
you coming.
stayed for the rest of the meeting?
Oh,
Okay, then I'm just gonna
absolutely,
stay and
yes.
listen to the rest of it, because I'm very interested,
right.
so.
Wonderful.
Thank
Well, thank you so much. Okay, we're moving on. Wanted to share just a recap of March Disability Awareness Month. Our theme for this year was Fueled for the Future, and our committee and our group of volunteers did an amazing job. Stacy Oldham, our committee member, led a lot of our initiatives with the Indy Fuel. We had a disability night with the Indy Fuel. It was very well attended, really fun, and we met a lot of, bless you, fans that have disabilities, long-term fans that have been attending those Indy Fuel games and got to network with them. It was a lot of fun. Our kickoff was amazing. Stacy Oldham was our keynote speaker. She talked about her journey with her diagnosis with MS and the things that she hopes will be things that our city and just the community and general society will look towards improving upon as it relates to disabilities. And she was very positive of the new innovations and scientific findings, research as it relates to MS. And then we gave out our awards to community members. It was amazing. The community involvement and the number of people that are engaged in disability inclusion, and it went really well. We appreciate everybody's help from the departments, from the different departments here with the city public relations, Ross and his team. It's a village, and they did an amazing job getting everything out. The transition fair, we had, bless you, our panel with the One Zone luncheon was very well attended. We had, I think, record number of attendance, and that panel was amazing with Kelly. I don't know if you want to talk about that panel, but it was very well received.
It was great. It was a packed house, and I felt like the energy was really good. I feel like for the last few years, we've kind of been building momentum, and you could tell this year, I feel like everybody was really, really engaged. They weren't just going to check a box, that they went to learn more about things, and I felt like we just had a really strong energy coming out of that group.
Absolutely. This year, we, the city, invited some business leaders, people that own businesses to come and attend that luncheon, and we've decided that's very effective when you make the ask, and hopefully we can do that again next year, where we ask certain people from the community to come and attend and learn more about these programs, how people can get involved in disability inclusion in the workplace, with employment opportunities for people with disabilities. So it was very well received. Again, we want to thank the Fishers Arts Council. Ross and the Arts Council did an amazing job with the reception. Ross, I don't know if you want to share just a little bit about that art. The keynote artist was just amazing.
Yeah, I think once again, why I do enjoy our event at Conner Prairie every year, and I hope that does go back. I think the opportunity that Arts Council had in stepping up this year to host that was great, so I anticipate it was another record number for us. But I would anticipate back in 2026, is that correct, for us to have, hopefully, the event to return to Conner Prairie, because I think that venue opens up the opportunity for performances and other things. So excited.
It was amazing. So we really want to thank the Arts Council. Chrissy and Michelle, you want to talk about preparing for the next employment opportunity at Grace Church. I popped in there, and there were a lot of people that came to have their resumes looked at. There were mock interviews. So it was amazing. If you want to share a little bit about what you did. And
Sure. We had, we wanted to keep it small since it was our first one. We had 10 signed up and 8 showed up, I believe, for the event. And like Cecilia said, we kind of had stations, and people just went from station to station. They took their resume and had, job coaches or employment specialists kind of look at them and kind of see what they might suggest changing. We had one former Noblesville student that came, and we were all like, how do you not already have a job? Oh my gosh. And from there that he decided that he wanted to do ClickList. He was already doing the Instacart with his dad, so he already knew Kroger. He was talking about how much he liked it, and we're like, Kroger is always needing people, buddy. So one of Michelle's employment specialists was going to go take him to Kroger, and he was just beaming. But it was really nice. We decided that since we kind of got the framework of it, that it was something that we could probably do a little bit more frequently, and even if it does reach a couple people, hopefully get a few more stakeholders from the community involved. We kind of, again, kept it smaller, so it was our teams that were really helping with the stations, but we decided that having, somebody in certain industries or whatever come in and participate with those interviews.
It gave people a chance there was one young lady who came in just terrified. You could just tell she was just, the idea of having to talk about herself with somebody new, but but that's what happens with an interview, right? You're meeting somebody for the first time and you're working on that, and so to be able to sit down totally new with somebody and to start to kind of break that down and engage in a conversation, that was kind of really the whole point, to leave going, okay, maybe I could do this again. Work One, the following week or so, held a job fair, and so that was kind of the idea, was that you get used to interviewing or practice interviewing with your job coach, your employment specialist, your parents, those type of things, and to go and kind of do that mock interview with somebody who hasn't seen your resume before, to give you some different set of eyes and to get some feedback, and really to prepare people for that, an event where you're kind of then meeting people for the first time. It was able to really hit a lot of things and make people feel a little more confident going to that event.
And I did see people, I forgot to tell you, I did see people there.
Oh, good.
So they did that. So it was a nice prep, and it was just 2 weeks before, so it wasn't too far in advance that somebody would learn the skills or whatever. So it was successful. I mean, we both felt really good about it.
I really like that format of just preparing for the interviews and preparing for the next job. Are you thinking about doing something in October then, kind of similar to?
Yeah, it's definitely something that we could, and we can, if Work One's holding other events, because of the format, there's not a lot of prep, there's not a whole lot of advanced work. It's kind of like, here's a space, come, and get some folks to do resume reviews or mock interviews, and we had some business people that said in the future they would be willing to come and help that, for a couple hours, and so it's something that could be put together pretty easily, so.
And the
Great.
reverse job fair could be something as an option too. The only reason why we didn't hold it was because Work One was holding one, and it was around the time we were gonna do it. We just thought it was silly to compete, so that's why we just kinda worked with them a little bit.
Great. Well, let us know if you need help from this committee to help interview people or something that we can be a part of, let us know for sure. And then the transition fair, I know that was a huge success again. Do you want to share how many vendors were there?
So we had 78 vendors registered. I think we ended up with 68 showing. A couple people had things come up or whatever. We're estimating between 175 to 200 people visited. It was a very busy time, but we got some good feedback and some things that we can consider for next time, and it was good. We had a lot of new vendors that we hadn't had before, so it's nice to have the different exposure and have different things offered to the families.
Right, that's awesome. So we all have to be really proud, again, just a successful event. I want to thank everybody that was a part of this month-long awareness month, because it takes a lot of people to coordinate it, so I really want to thank everybody. We're going to move on to the My Point of View Day. So one of the things that's not listed or advertised, but it's an event that we've been having since 2016, where we invite disability stakeholders, people that work in the disability space, elected officials from all levels of government, state, local, county, the department heads, the mayor, and we participate in roundtable discussions called My Point of View Day, where the disability community gets an opportunity to really share what life is like for them, how things are going in Fishers, or how we can work together to work on some initiatives and learn from people with disabilities and people that work with people with disabilities. This event was like a world record, I think, event for us. I think there were over 100 people, and it was amazing. I want to thank everybody that was a part of that. But we wanted to go ahead and kind of give you a recap of the different topics and kind of the takeaways from the different topics, because we try to really be engaged and laser in and really be thinking of who should be a part of these conversations. So we have a number of different topics. So one of the ones we covered was public safety this year. So Kelly is going to share a little bit about what were the takeaways from the public safety, what was talked about. So if you could share a little bit, Kelly, on.
Yeah, the one thing we did that was a little bit different this year is we asked each focus area to come up with 3 action steps. If they wished, we could pursue 3 things this year from each group. And so for public safety, the discussion was awesome. We had the mayor in our group, and we talked a lot about falls, which we also had some reflection on that today with the new program. And generally just that, our first responders they're kind of tasked with all things 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I think that they feel often like they're really stretched thin. And so there was a lot of discussion around that. But our 3 top action steps that we hoped for out of the public safety focus group were that we look deeper into Smart 911. Is that something we really need to promote community-wide and investigate whether it's a sustainable product for us to use in Fishers? The second thing was that we work with our PR team and just continue with community education for fall prevention, including some preventative and reactive strategies, which it sounds like the Fishers Health Department has a really good handle on that. And the third thing is just more awareness for folks who have mobility challenges around things like curb cuts, ramps for mobility issues. You know, because I think we take a lot of pride and awareness, but there's still some challenges with accessibility throughout our community. So those were the top 3 takeaways from our group.
Wonderful. Great. The next topic that we talked about was transportation, and Shelby was in that conversation. If you could share a few takeaways from that, Shelby.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Our table was very crowded. There seemed to be no space or any more space we could add, but it came with a lot of passionate individuals who worked in various industries, whether it be government, whether it be employers like myself at Conner Prairie, to even service providers like Janice and, you know, some of the other transportation-related service providers. And all of us had been part of this conversation for many years. And I think what we finally realized was we've made a lot of assumptions of what our needs are, but do we really know the true needs of our neighbors with differing abilities? And is transportation what they need, or is there some other form? You know, we talk a lot about public transportation and how we're limited, or not even limited, we don't even have it. And we compare ourselves to Indianapolis, but is this truly the need, or is it some sort of partnerships with our ride providers like Uber and Lyft, and would that be an option? And then as we were talking at our table, we learned, well, there's other services too that many of us, and you know, I've been kind of working in this area for, 7 or 8 years at least, and I didn't even know of some of the services as I sit here today, that there's drive retraining for those who have been injured, may have used to drive but no longer feel comfortable or they're nervous about it. We have a service provider at our table that was involved in that. So ultimately, after all of the conversation, it really came down to one key thing. We need to stop making assumptions, and let's get the data that we need to effectively and proactively act on what is the true needs of our community. And we can talk about community being Fishers, we can talk about community being Hamilton County. There might potentially be opportunities for larger partnerships, so our citizens can go between cities if necessary for employment, activities, doctor's appointments, whatever it may be. So long story short, a survey is absolutely necessary to truly understand the needs so that we can act upon them in an efficient manner. As I mentioned, there were some services that I didn't even know about that were there for those with differing abilities or those in need of transportation in general. And so we also think that we need to have much more of a marketing push on what those services are, where you can get them. I find out more about the disability community from my coworker who has a son with differing abilities. So it's interesting what we don't know. So I think marketing is has a huge level of importance. And then I think I mentioned collaboration when it makes sense between our Hamilton County partners. So those were the 3 takeaways that we had from the transportation side of things.
Thanks, Shelby. And I know that Kelly and I have been working with the Hamilton County Express, and there's been some dramatic changes that they have implemented a new software system. They've moved 2 vehicles to start the routes directly out of Fishers. They're housing 2 vehicles at Holland Park, which is making runs more efficient and effective. They did a rider survey, which they needed to find out, get feedback from existing ridership. They've implemented and changed their handbook so that people are aware. They're trying to cut down on last-minute cancellations or no-shows. Like there's going to be some penalties if you are always, canceling or no-showing. And so they're trying to really make sure that people are able to get their rides. Is there anything else, Kelly? But there's more to come, but there's a good headway that's been made since last year's My Point of View Day, and where this topic of transportation came about. And is there anything else you can?
No, they did just get a grant where they're getting 3 new vehicles through Indigo, which is great. Go ahead, Katie.
I just want to point out, not a lot of people know this, but Uber and Lyft in Indiana have no wheelchair accessible vehicles at all. Not a single one. It is not an option in Indiana. There are other states that have it, but it's like 5.
Okay. How do we have something like that? Do you know what we would need to
So Arizona, to get Uber to provide accessible vehicle services, they mandated that if Uber wanted to operate at the Phoenix airport, then they had to provide an accessible vehicle for someone coming in within 20 minutes of them landing at Phoenix airport. And if they couldn't provide that, then Uber couldn't operate at the airport. And so obviously with Indianapolis being a huge hub, I mean, this affects Hamilton County too, you'd think that something like that would be in the best interest in kind of forcing Uber or Lyft's hand into becoming accessible.
Well, thanks for sharing that. We didn't know that. Well, maybe that's something we could talk to our state legislators about. The other thing that has been talked about is doing a assessment or a survey of the disability community here in Fishers, and maybe that's something that this committee could help with. I know Stacy Oldham had found a few surveys that were done in other cities that we could utilize that same questionnaire and see and maybe just survey at least maybe some of the groups that we know of, or maybe try to see if we could get that out, like through PR or something. So more to come, but I do feel like we kind of need to know what are the needs of the disability community here in Fishers as it relates to transportation, because the transportation system at Hamilton County Express, they also provide rides, transportation to all people, so not just people with disabilities. The way their funding is, their grant funding, they have to be able to provide transportation to everybody, not just the disability community. So, all right. Well,
I have seen wheelchair accessible vehicles in Fishers with rental notices on their vehicles. So I know it's around. I just don't know where it's based.
Okay.
But I have seen wheelchair accessible vans in Fishers.
Okay. Good to know. Okay. The other group that we topic was networking and social opportunities, and Darcy was a part of that. Darcy, if you could share a little bit about what your group talked about, some of the key takeaways.
Sure. We had a lot of lively discussion at our table, and 3 takeaways. Well, actually, we have a lot of takeaways, but probably the 3 main ones. There was a suggestion for a concert in the park given by people with disabilities. We could have vendor tables. We could have food trucks. I'm not sure how that would look differently than the Fishers Farmers Market, but it was a good idea to maybe have a concert in the park where we'd have, again, folks with people with disabilities to give, if they sing, if they dance, if they play music. I'm just giving people a voice there. The second one, and this is what we have a website that holds all of our information and resources, but it's not publicized very well. Or we haven't publicized it as much as we should, because there were a lot of folks at the table asking about, was this resource available? Is this resource? Or we think we need this resource. So it's a matter of getting all that combined onto our webpage, which we have a lot, but again, we have room for more. So that's one of the things we were talking about. And then the third one, having sensory hours before the events and sensory bags both. So not, I guess before it was one or the other, and the committee or our table talked about meeting people where they're at and not having either or, but having both. So having a sensory hour before and having sensory bags during the event. So those were, I think, the top 3 things that we talked about at our table for the networking and social opportunities.
Okay. Great, thank you very much, Darcy. A lot of people don't realize that the city of Fishers is a designated culture city. The staff of the Parks and Recreation Department went through training about how to better understand sensory issues and the general public, how to handle those things. And so all the Parks and Recreation activities that are held here at the amphitheater and in the Nickel Plate and some other parks, you know, they have the sensory kits that you can check out and things like that. But I think, yeah, maybe a little more publicity as to that where that's available, and maybe our committee can help, you know, help get the word out and everything. Wonderful, great work. Okay, and then this year we had the deaf and hard of hearing community and representatives of CODA come and share their thoughts. There are a wide range of individuals that are deaf and hard of hearing that live in Fishers, big community, and they would like to work with our committee to see how we can do more to make things more accessible and inclusive for them. And so Ross was going to share a couple of key points on that discussion.
Yeah, and as a general reminder to everyone, there's 9 pages of all these notes that are attached to the agenda, so feel free to kind of dig into those. That was the main goal, to have action items for each of these goals, so Kelly, I appreciate that. The Deaf and Hard of Hearing and the CODA group was led by our Parks Director, Marissa Deckert, and like everyone else, there was lots of items that they talked about, but the top 3 that came at the end of the discussion was business outreach to ask for closed captioning at their establishments. We've talked about that as a committee here. The city thought that was an easy thing for them to lead. First, by asking campaign prior to seeking state legislation. We thought that was an easy, low-hanging fruit that we could start with, as we have lots of business committees that are already established. The next one was having a seat at the table, so potentially inviting a deaf individual to join the Advisory Committee on Disability. That would be a mayoral appointment, so we will continue to work on that. But next steps could be a deaf breakfast with the mayor in partnership with CODA. We thought that was a great opportunity to continue that relationship, especially with CODA as they find their ground here in Fishers. And then the continued integration and interpretation services at any event in partnership with Fishers Parks. I think you made a fair point, Darcy, about how events sometimes have changed and altered, and maybe there was a preferred way at one point. So I think just having the Parks Department be open to feedback, and they always are. So Marissa is happy to hear any of that feedback. So just a couple of top items.
We have a great Parks and Recreation Department, and they're just always so awesome with wanting to learn and to be more inclusive, and so I'm looking forward to working with them this year to see what we can do. One of the things that is also being talked about is actually the city of Carmel is talking about the same thing with closed captioning, interestingly enough. So they were wondering kind of like what we've been doing, and so I would like for this committee to maybe see what we can do to do a campaign of just how we can approach businesses to help them work with CODA and some other individuals to see how we could like educate the businesses on, you know, would you consider putting making sure one television in your establishment has closed captioning. It helps not only the deaf and hard of hearing, but people that are mature seniors that, you know, can't hear as well, things like that. When it's loud, it helps everybody. So maybe that's something that this committee, we can start kind of working on that for this year. So that it was very informative. So thank you very much, and we really appreciate the deaf and hard of hearing and the CODA folks to be involved this year. Employment, that's always a topic that we discuss year to year, and so Chrissy and Michelle were going to share a little bit of the highlights of that discussion.
Well, you were well thought of when it first started, because one of the first things that a parent brought up was how do we recognize employers? So we talked about the Ally logo again. So putting something like that. So we had some pretty rich conversation about that, and we talked about that it's come up before, and that there were a couple people that felt like that might not be the best thing, but it still is ultimately the business's choice if they want to put it up there or not. So definitely something to talk about. There were a couple people that were talking about the recognition for employers. So we talked about the Cornerstone Award, and they're kind of like, okay, what happens from there? And I said, well, it's on our website. It's really kind of their thing to run with. Look what just to celebrate what they are and how inclusive they are. So that was something that kind of circled back a couple times about how we can recognize businesses. It's not about the tax write-off. It's not a pity, it's not, oh, look at this nice young man that needs a job. It's we want them to be gainfully employed and enjoy it. There were talks about sometimes parents feeling like once they're done with school, it's just kind of like they go off the cliff. And we do everything we can to help bridge that, but there are waiting lists everywhere, and sometimes the parents wait until it's a little too late to get on those waiting lists or to start looking into adult services. So again, the need for Hamilton County to have more programs for individuals that are aging out of schools is definitely something that was discussed as well.
I think part of it was we talked about some things that we've kind of started to roll with, and COVID kind of put a pause on, but have kept going. So like the Cornerstone Award, and people are like, oh, I didn't know. And so I think just some more awareness or oomph to that, and they're like, well, what does the business do? I'm like, well, they can promote that they received their own award. We're not going to tell them what to do. But so I think a lot of it was, oh, I didn't know that, I didn't see that. So I think whether it's pushing out some more things in social media, I mean, you can only push so much out there, and people have to take responsibility for what they want to read. But putting some more things out there, and working with some of the employers. We talked about our Allies for Disability Employment, and really talking about how can we get those employers to the table. And we've talked about just this afternoon about, we've reached out so many times, and a mother shared a story was trying to talk to a business owner about hiring their son or daughter, and they said sure, and when the job coach went back, they're like, and they just didn't want to hurt the person's feelings. So how do we work with those employers to really kind of break down those barriers and stigma? And I guess Christy and I met this afternoon with Invest Hamilton County to talk about their investability program, and starting to really roll that out to some different sites to really put together kind of a connection to say, you've got somebody that is wants to be an electrician. They will have already have somebody in place kind of do the prep work to kind of say, hey, these two electrical companies will come and talk to somebody, or we'll shadow. And then we'll kind of have this network that we can use across the county, not just Fishers, for the school or the different providers to help build some of this, but also to build out some on-site job training things as well. So they've got a 2-year grant that's just getting started really this summer. And so things will start to move with that, but really their point is to then help break down some of these barriers across the county as well.
We also encouraged the parents especially, but anybody sitting there, if they knew people that own businesses, that even if we could just go in for some job exploration or just, carve out a couple of skills somewhere, that it didn't have to be a long commitment, it didn't have to be a paid commitment, but just something to help get some exposure to different, students or clients as they go through determining what that is they think they want to do. So it was a good conversation.
That's great. Yeah, it's something to think about. I mean, maybe that's something we could try to plan for October, some kind of again, kind of just a reach out to employers like, hey, would you be willing to partner with us in XYZ? And
Yeah, and I think as this grant from Invest Hamilton County rolls out, there'll be some of those opportunities, and they've hired people through this grant money to kind of focus this on as their job, not their side hustle, but as their job, and so I think that'll help also to be a constant backup, but I think there'll be some opportunities to play into that as that
Awesome.
grant rolls out.
I'm hoping we can maybe get Mike Thibodeau from Invest Hamilton County to come and share a little bit more about what that program looks like and how it includes people with disabilities, because that's
Yeah,
really
they're just
exciting.
we met with them today, and they're just starting to meet with providers in the next couple weeks to talk about how this will all roll out, so. Yeah, he did say he would come, yeah, he would come.
Okay.
Cecilia.
Oh, sure. Awesome.
Yeah,
That's good to know.
Mike mentioned that today, yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So that's another thing we need to think about, this committee, and I'd love to get your thoughts, Katie, on this sticker or this decal that we would have that businesses could display as they're a disability ally. We've been talking about that, and we probably just need to devote some time to that discussion, maybe at our next meeting, of like thoughts on whether, we pursue something like that, because it gets brought up year to year, and anyway, we could fill you in a little bit more about what that entails, but good work. Arts and culture and recreation, I was gonna have Ross again present on that, give us a recap on that discussion.
So this discussion was led by Jake Reardon McSully. He is our Director of Recreation and Wellness. There was a large focus of the group talking about the new 105,000 square foot community center. Some of those included, as a whole, we have a shortage of programs and trainings for inclusive arts and recreation. So what opportunities they might have specifically for a flexologist to be housed at the community center. But also looking at arts and culture as revenue and pathway to a career. So ways of providing empowering adult individuals to commission and sell artwork. So an opportunity maybe to partnership with Fishers Art Council like we did in March. And then the ability, again, to work with partners in the arts and cultural realm to provide opportunities for the community to learn more about the careers in arts and recreation. The Arts Council just recently approved being a partner with HSE Schools for some of their career pathways, so I think there's an opportunity to piggyback off of that.
Awesome, that's exciting. I'm really excited about the new arts and culture component to the new municipal center, and having that partnership with Indianapolis Arts Center, and just having more opportunities. And we had a lot of teachers, educators in the arts that were a part of the discussions, and they're really excited, so a lot of good work. Next, we talked about the new event center and entertainment. There's a lot of opportunity there to hold adaptive sports events and ensuring that this facility is going to be inclusive and welcoming to everybody. So I'm sure that topic was very well received, and there were a lot of inputs. So Ross was also going to share a little bit about what came out of that discussion.
Yeah, so this was another packed table, rightfully so. The discussion was led by Stacy. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of talking points around the new 8,500-seat event center. Some of those being restrooms, making sure that we had clear, visible maps, signs, larger stalls, more than what is necessary, directions to any specific additional rooms that would be needed. The process, having a process from start to finish on how procedures would be implemented for individuals with disabilities in the new event center. So standard operating procedure, and then opportunities for safety measures put in place for individuals in the case of an emergency, making sure that those routes are highly publicized, and making sure everyone could exit the facility. This is the first time we've had a venue of this size, so I wanted to make sure we're covering all of our bases.
That's awesome. And I know there were also, I think, discussions on, possible work opportunities there as well. So a lot of great discussion. And then the final topic, important topic that we talk about every year as well, is housing and universal design. And Wilbur was going to share a few of the talking points from those discussions.
Just like we were talking about with transportation, sometimes what we expect and what was actually discussed out there wasn't necessarily what we anticipated. And I'm going to touch base on our three action items. We were blessed that we had Todd Houston, our representative from Indiana, at our table, because two of the three items were more state focused than they were Fishers focused, although Fishers, a disability committee, can certainly be advocates. But one of the things that we discussed was how Indiana interprets the settings rule. And the settings rule, for those of you who don't know, it was actually created to keep Indiana from having just institutions where all special needs people were shoved into the institutions. And the idea was to get those people out into the community and be part of the community, which is wonderful. But one of the things we discovered was the settings rule in Indiana, compared to other states, really limits what we can do. And it's Indiana's interpretation of that rule, which is why I was glad that Todd Houston was there sharing with us, and he was taking notes like crazy. So that was a positive thing. Let's see. They said the settings rule is interpreted to keep neighborhoods from becoming exclusive, and it's intended to keep them inclusive, but intentional communities for adults with special needs, both for safety reasons, for social reasons, for support reasons. We identified those as still being needed, those still being necessary. And I mentioned a while ago when we were just talking amongst ourselves, we know there's 55 plus communities out there. How do they do that? And we can't in the disability community. So anyhow, we also recognized we'd like Fishers to work with local builders, and we would love to see accessible options being required, that a builder could have an upgrade for accessible options, because we realize we can't dictate to them what they're going to include when they build a residence. But we would love to have a requirement where they could list accessible options that somebody could pick 0 entry level, or somebody could pick whatever they needed for their particular disability. And we had brochures from Maggie that listed a visitable a residence, what you had to do to make it visitable. But we also had the AARP booklet that just showed how a residence could be built that would be more inclusive. Just an example, if you had limited mobility, you couldn't necessarily get a knob to open a cabinet, but if you had a handle, you could easily open the cabinet. Does that cost any different? Really minimal cost. A door with a latch on it instead of a door with a knob on it. Just a lot of little things, and we would love to see builders offer that just as, here's a choice. You could pick this, and maybe it would cost something, maybe it wouldn't cost anything. Anyhow, that was one of the things that we felt like Fishers could suggest to builders, that they have that option, that they offer that option. The last thing, which again we don't have any control here, but the CIH waiver, which is the Community Integration and Habilitation Waiver, we had a lot of people at our table talking about how difficult those are to access today, and that's in Indiana. Again, that's how Indiana recognizes some of these limitations. But they were saying you either had to be the parents either had to be over 80 years old or dead to make that CIH waiver quickly available. And again, Representative Houston was taking all kinds of notes about how we might be able to go back. And so I look at the disability community here as an advocate to help steer some of those issues. But I was really surprised that the settings rule and the waivers were two of the high points that people felt were standing between them and being housed in Fishers. Totally caught me off guard with that one. But,
I do have a quick comment. I was in that group too.
yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're good. I think that going forward, I know we have a lot of people there, but a table for housing needs and accessibility needs for physical disabilities versus intellectual disabilities, because the 90% of that conversation did not apply to me in any way, shape, or form, and those waivers aren't applicable to people with disabilities or for people with intellectual disabilities. And I just think, especially if we're going to have someone like Todd Houston sitting there listening, like, just to make it more clear so that those, I mean, obviously there's overlap between those communities, but some needs are very different. And so I think that may be something to look, sorry, my mic's look into going forward. Okay.
Katie, those are good points that you make. I appreciate you sharing that, because there are, and we need to look at maybe, having two separate tables next year, and this way we can address issues on both sides. So, as you can see, we had a lot of great discussion. So all the committee members have a sheet here with a kind of a recap of notes. If you guys could please just take a look at that and kind of see what you think you might, might want to help lead. Every year we kind of take on some key things, and I think it's important to kind of let's look at this and then talk about maybe some of the top 3 things we want to focus on for this coming year after we've looked at this and evaluated a little bit. But it's great work, and people just love it. So we're going to move on to item 6 on the agenda. We're going to talk about the Fishers Farmers Market Inclusion Day, and that's something that Darcy has been working really hard on. Darcy, you want to share a little bit about what this day is entailing, and there's a voting item today to approve the application. So if you could just share with everybody kind of what this is all about and what we're voting on today.
Thank you, Sissy. I would love to share what this is all about, because this is a day of a Fishers Farmers Market where we have 2 different groups of people. One, we have vendors, people with disabilities that would like to sell products, would like to they create products, they create food, or they raise food. There's just a lot of different opportunities. They make jewelry, and then also groups that are more of an informational group, and like an informational business or an informational nonprofit. So there are a couple different types of booths there. Again, the date is July the 13th. Once we vote on these items today, Erica and I sat down. She's with the Parks Department. We sat down and we went over each field on the application and each guideline on the guidelines for accessibility and inclusion, and that's something that we're going to take a look at voting on today. But I said, so let's say we vote on this, how soon can we get this information out so people can apply to be there at that day? And she said anytime, she just hits the button, because we've already outlined it and we've already done it online. And I said, well, how long does this typically, how long do you take applications? And she said about 6 weeks. So what I propose, once we vote on this, is to start the process April 15th through the end of May 31st, about 6 weeks. That would allow enough time for people to apply, to allow us from the end of May till July 13th to kind of, there's about 60 booth spaces, so we could like organize, we could help place the different vendors, the different people that applied to have a space at this day. So I'm also going to ask for volunteers on the committee to help me because we're going to need additional volunteers when it comes time. So that's another thing. We're going to have a vendor meeting where once all the folks that applied to have a booth, where we can meet one evening out at the Fisher's Farmers Market, the Nickel Plate. We can show them the various spots, the bathrooms, or that's in the building where the bathrooms and the conference room is located. We just need to decide in July or June or July what date we're going to select for all the vendors to come in and kind of say, hey, okay, this is kind of where you're going to be. This is how this is going to work. So that way people can, that day when it comes, they aren't like, where am I going? What am I doing? We're just going to have like a little bit of an informational meeting then. And also, the last thing that we talked about is stage entertainment. So there's entertainment from 10 to noon, and they're like 4 half-hour time slots. So we want to decide, and I encourage the committee's help, is if we want to do that, because if we do, then we would need to take applications and, for different groups to perform during those half-hour sessions. So that's just something that we can take suggestions now, or it's up to us to help coordinate and schedule that for that day.
Darcy, did Erica talk at a ball about not the vendors, but the entertainment? Have they booked anything yet, or
They've not
is
booked
it up to
anything yet.
us?
She said this all on us.
Okay.
To decide. We're to decide, we're to arrange, we're to kind of do all that.
So if we didn't want to book entertainment, then Parks would take care of that, but it might not be disability focused, correct?
Correct. Yes, I think that they would take, yes. I did not talk with her about if we didn't decide that we wanted to have entertainment, but I'm sure it would be just another day like you suggested.
Yep.
I know there's some dance studios that have adaptive dance programs that they do want to be able to perform. And so if anyone has an organization that you think would want to have an opportunity to perform and be part of the entertainment, if you could send an email out to Darcy and let her know who they are. This is a great opportunity. I know a lot of people have been asking groups. I know there's all kinds of groups. The Special Olympics has ballroom dancing. I mean, I'm sure there's other ones that we don't know about, but please let Darcy know. So what Darcy was saying is that it is going to be July 13th. It's on a Saturday. My goal is that we would have a table there for the advisory committee on disability, to have a table, and we could be in shifts if you want, or if you're able to come for a little bit and help out. And this way we now have our official name tags, and I think it's nice to be able to talk to people, to share about what we do, get people to sign up to learn more about our meetings, get them interested in being involved and sharing resources. We can share our toolkits, like as an ally, how to be an ally, information on disabilities. So I'm happy to, take suggestions from anybody that might, want to suggest, what else we could provide there, But Darcy, we're gonna need all hands on deck to help Darcy.
Yep.
So what you have in front of you right now is just the application that was tailored for this Accessibility Inclusion Day for vendors who have disabilities to apply to be able to sell their goods, their items at the farmer's market. So we just need a motion to approve. I don't know if anyone has any questions about this application before we take a vote, or any questions for Darcy about what we're planning at the farmer's market.
This is just for the inclusion vendors, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
The reason I ask is because they're selling like food products and things like that. I'm sure there are vendors at the farmer's market that probably bring in vegetables and things from outside of their growing space. For example, tomatoes or something. If they're not in season, there's still farmers there selling tomatoes. This wouldn't affect them.
This would not affect the other vendors at the
No.
This
farmer's
is
No.
market.
strictly the
This
inclusion
is- yes,
vendors. Okay.
yes.
They have a very
They do.
similar guideline.
They
though.
have, I have a copy of their vendor contract right here, the farmer's market vendor.
Okay.
And so we compared that, and then we also compared to what the Biz Kids, and then we came up with this.
Okay, good.
So that,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
So there were just, I'm sure this is just a draft, but I did notice like on page 3 and 5, there was some changes. We need to change that to make it state Fisher's Farmers Market Accessibility Inclusion Day guidelines.
Yeah,
and
at the
not
top and the.
at the top.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
also just some formatting, I think it was on page, the last page. We just needed to, well, maybe that's okay, the formatting, so they can fix that. But right now, you're voting just on the language and the information. Like I said, they kind of modified it from the other vendor days.
So what changes were different? I just wonder why we have a separate, if we're talking about, if we have an inclusion, why a separate agreement, and why not just use the same agreement that the other vendors are using at the farmer's market?
The farmer's market is an entirely more comprehensive type of process. Talks about being there at the farmer's market, like certain days, certain participation fees, the vendor selection criteria. There's just other things that apply more towards the
Because
actual.
it's for the whole series
farmer-
versus
yes,
one day.
It's the whole series versus the one day. So that's why we use the Biz Kids, because that's usually just for one
One day,
day.
okay.
We took that as a basis, and then kind of developed ours from there.
Okay, that makes more sense versus,
Now-
I was like, why?
Now,
Doesn't seem very inclusive if we're having our own
yeah,
contract.
yeah.
Because those vendors, they are
They sign up
selected
for
for the
a-
whole
yes.
year. So-
Okay.
And so this is a dedicated day for vendors that
It's a
have
streamline, it's really the same
disabilities.
process, just streamlined a little bit.
The only difference between Biz Kids and the Accessibility Inclusion Day that I know of is something that I proposed, is that Biz Kids has a $10 fee to have their booth there, and I didn't want the cost to be a barrier for people with disabilities if they couldn't either come up with it or afford it. So I asked the I talked with Erica and said I would like to waive that requirement of having $10. Now, if you all want to go ahead and reinstate that, I can let her know that. But I didn't want the $10 fee to be an obstacle. So I just kind of, is
I
that
think definitely
fair?
that first year that,
The first year, see how it goes. Is that okay with everybody? Okay.
Okay.
So I'll give Erica the go-ahead to hit the.
Well, let's,
Oh, wait a minute. I'm
let's
sorry.
vote
We'll
on it
vote.
here.
Sorry.
Okay, so
I was so
need-
excited. I was-
No, that's all right. So I need a motion to approve
It's like,
the Fisher's Farmers Market Accessibility Inclusion Day vendor application.
I move.
Okay, motion by Kelly Hartman.
I'll
Is there a second? Second by Michelle Stelz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Wonderful. Well, we're really excited. This is something new, and I think it's going to be a great way to promote and provide opportunities for people with disabilities. So that's great. So we talked about the reverse job fair in the discussion of the March recap, so we're going to skip that. But the announcement that I have is Stacy Oldham has rolled off the advisory committee. She's served for a long time, and we want to thank her for her commitment, and she has decided to move on. She's got a lot of great things happening in her future, and she's ready to hand the baton to someone else. So our newly appointed member of our committee is Katie Jackson. And Katie, I'd like for you to just introduce yourself, kind of share a little bit about you, and we want to welcome you. It's awesome that you're here and wanting to be a part of our group.
Cool. Well, I'm really happy to be here. My name's Katie Jackson. I moved to Fishers with my husband about 2 years ago now, and I am an attorney in downtown Indianapolis at Denton's Bingham Greenbaum. I do corporate litigation, and I was born with a neuromuscular disease. I have 2 brothers that have it as well. Played wheelchair sports growing up until a few years ago. And I have a 1.5-year-old. And yeah, we're busy, but
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
I remember those days.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, we are really excited. We thank you for wanting to be a part of our committee, and we're looking forward to working with you and getting to know you more, and welcome.
Thank you.
And you have your name tag. It's official. These are new name tags that we thought we could use those for our events and things that we're doing in the community to let people know that we are here to serve and to help the disability community. So with that, our next meeting is Tuesday, June 11th at Launch Fishers at 5:30. And please, if you're interested in getting notifications, there is a link there on the agenda of how you can sign up to receive information about our quarterly meetings. And with that, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, Kelly's motion by Kelly, second by
Chrissy.
Wilbur. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.